Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Poland is positioning itself at the centre of Europe's rearmament drive. Warsaw expects 44 billion euros from the EU's SAFE programme, part of a 150 billion euro defence loan scheme Poland helped design to strengthen everything from drones and border protection to AI space projects and critical infrastructure. At the same time, Poland has chosen Sweden's A-26 submarines in a landmark deal that reshapes Baltic security. With Russia's threat growing, Europe is scrambling to rebuild deterrence. Joining me to discuss this is Garvan Walshe, CEO, Article 7, Intelligence for Democrats. Garvan, welcome to TVP World. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening to you. So before we kick off, there's a short soundbite that I'd like to share and then I'll get your view on it.
Poland has become the biggest beneficiary of this project. Nearly 44 billion euros will be allocated for the purchase of drone equipment for the Eastern Shield. And finally, we have obtained clear acceptance from the whole of Europe that the Eastern Shield, just like our eastern border, is the common responsibility of the entire European Union. And Europe has finally begun to treat it as a place where we invest European money, not just our own Polish funds. These also include space project, the development of artificial intelligence in defence, an absolute necessity at the moment, cyber and crypto security, the Safe Baltic programme, equipment for the army, for the border guard and for the police.
Right, so it sounds from what Prime Minister Tusk was saying is that the SAFE programme is a strategic investment by Europe. Tell us a little bit about how it works.
Well, this is the idea that the European Union is allowed by its treaties to support member states in a situation of crisis. So it can guarantee funds and enable funds to be obtained at a cheaper price than otherwise would be possible. This has allowed 150 billion euros to be mobilized in a way that otherwise wouldn't be, by exploiting the excellent borrowing credibility of the major European economies. And this has come, of course, to the benefit of Poland, which was one of the purposes of designing this scheme in the first place, recognizing that Poland has particularly acute security needs and trying to find ways to meet those needs.
OK, there are a number of things you touch on there. Let's go back to the first one. So you're saying that basically the European Union is guaranteeing loans that countries can take for this purpose. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the purpose of this bit of the program. I mean, there are many other things in the Rearm Europe program as a whole. There are various other instruments that are being planned, and then there's going to be a new EU budget negotiation as well for the next 7 years. So Europe is really pushing defence in a major fashion, and this is one part of a multi-pronged approach to try and strengthen European defence.
Right, we'll come to the other parts in a minute, but this specific part, countries are taking loans. Who from? And what are the repayment terms like? Over what period, for example?
Well, they're government bonds, so it's part of the normal way governments finance themselves on the international financial markets. This enables it to be done more cheaply for these defensive purposes. Europe is basically guaranteeing that this can happen at rates that would be lower than otherwise possible, and that's why there's more money available. The interest rates are lower than they would be if Poland would have to borrow this amount of money itself.
Understood. Now, so Poland's got this, let's stick with the 44 billion, you mentioned 150 billion euros a minute ago, but let's stick with the 44 for a second. Where's this money going to go primarily?
And this is obviously it's going to go upgrading defences. It's going to go with this slightly still undefined drone wall. It's unclear whether this is a wall of drones or a wall of defences against drones. It's going to go into the equipment procurement budget more broadly, and much of this money then has to be spent on European equipment, and it will continue to reinforce Poland's defense, because Poland is engaging in a major rearmament program for quite obvious reasons.
So will all of this equipment be made in Poland, or are other countries likely to benefit from this?
No, it will be made across Europe. I mean, Poland has a defense industry, but many other European countries do too, and a portion of it can even be spent, I think, on non-European equipment. There had been negotiations about getting the UK involved, but there's some difficulty still, I think. But
Understand. So basically, the money will be circulating predominantly within the European Union. Now, you mentioned that Poland was instrumental in creating this SAFE program, and this happened when Poland held the EU Council presidency. Talk us through Poland's role in that process.
Well, as I understand it, the foreign minister Radosław Sikorski was very keen to push this scheme. They were understood that it was critical to Poland's interests, and it was necessary to get agreement on this program, particularly because there have traditionally been a number of countries that are reluctant to extend European borrowing. There are other countries that tend to, in this case, like France, for example, that tend to demand very high portions of French involvement in any defense program, and there Poland was able to resolve these differences and help Commissioner Kubilius and Ursula von der Leyen also create this program.
Now, it's really quite impressive, is it not, especially considering the European Union's bureaucracy and decision-making process, that, we've come this far with SAFE when it was really only created at the beginning of this year. Any thoughts on why that happened so quickly?
I think one of the advantages is it's a financing mechanism, and so national governments still buy weapons in their normal way, but with European money. They didn't have to set up a separate European bureaucracy for joint procurement. That's quite difficult. The treaties make it hard to do, so they focused on the financing side of things rather than the mechanism itself. There are some other European mechanisms also with wonderful acronyms like ASAP, which is about ammunition production, EDIP, which is the defense fund, and then there's also research and development funding. So it's now going to be possible to use development funds known as cohesion funds also for things that might have military applications. That wasn't possible before, but now, thanks to these changes, also very much pushed by the Polish presidency, this has been made possible.
Understood. So this is part of a much bigger inflow of cash into the European economies. You mentioned 150 billion euros earlier. Tell us about that and how this 44 billion fits in with that.
I mean, countries obviously had to make up applications, and because Poland's borrowing costs are higher, it was in a position to benefit from this kind of program in ways that, for example, Germany with low borrowing costs couldn't. Germany still has to finance its rearmament program from its own domestic budget because it has, I think, pretty much the lowest borrowing costs in Europe, so it wouldn't have had the benefit, whereas Poland does because there's a spread on the international financial markets. So this was able to reduce Poland's risk as it is engaging in this rearmament plan.
And therefore its borrowing costs?
Yeah, are lower, exactly.
Understood. So in terms of the Polish economy, what do you expect to happen here? I mean, there's already some investment in the defence industry in Poland. I mean, it spends the highest proportion of GDP of any country within the European Union. Do you expect that to grow?
I mean, it's not. I mean, let's not get carried away by this. It's 50 billion, 140 billion or so. That's a reasonable amount of money. But if you look at this compared to the size of the Polish economy, it's a small share of it. It will have a certain multiplier effect, but we're really doing this for national security. It's going to be minorly economically beneficial, but it isn't going to transform an economy that is itself already growing very strongly, is already showing great success, has had continuous growth since joining the EU. One of the reasons why Poland is now reaching average EU levels of income, even despite starting from way behind when it joined in the first place. This is very good economic performance, and that is related to a broad-based economic growth across everything from manufacturing, from participating in European supply chains, to also a growing services and technology sector in Poland. I mean, Poland's economy is much more than just defense. This helps, but let's remember we're doing this because we need to protect ourselves from the Russian threat. We're not doing this as an economic stimulus package.
Understood. Now, talking about protecting ourselves from the Russian threat, one of those threats exists in the Baltic Sea, and Poland has just committed to buying 3 Saab submarines, the latest technology incorporated. Tell us about the strategic impact of those in terms of defending the Baltic Sea.
Well, they're going to be important because the Baltic is one of Russia's main outlets to the outside world. It's being used at the moment for oil and gas exports, but it's also part of the way they supply their fleets around the world. At the moment, the Black Sea, which is one of their other ones, is obviously a much more contested environment, and most of their ships have been forced back to port by Ukrainian missiles and drones. So the Baltic is clearly important to Russia, and being able to have the ability to monitor the Russians, to understand what they're doing, and if necessary, obviously, to deter them from incursions is important. I would say that it's an important way of strengthening Poland's contribution to securing this sea, along with Sweden, along with Finland, along with the Baltic states themselves, and Denmark. It will make this a much more secure environment, and it would support any operations that might have to be done in the Baltic Sea in the event of a conflict.
Understood. Garvan Walshe, thank you very much indeed for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. But as always, don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.